What does it take to be a champion? If I were to ask you, what do you think are the qualities that it takes to be a champion athlete? What sort of qualities would you look for?
I think dedication. You have to be willing to go out and work every day, and you have to have a knowledge of the sport that you're playing. You can't just go out blind. You have to study the sport that you're going to play, and you have to go out and do what you have planned. Right.
So the real issue then is having knowledge about the name of that game and what the rules are and how to play it, yeah, and a dedication to do it. What else? Do you think anyone who was dedicated and just wants to be a champion can read the book and get a good coach and do it? Who else has an idea of what's involved in being a champion at a given sport? I mean, for example, if I wanted to be a champion gymnast, do you think that I, at 6'5", 225 pounds, could be a great gymnast?
You have to have the right physical characteristics to be in that sport.
And where does that come from?
Well, your diet and how, if you...
Even before the diet, where does that come from?
Your body.
Your body. And where does your body come from? No, your body comes from what you inherit in your genes, okay? It all begins in your genes, doesn't it? I mean, if I'm never going to be a shoemaker, isn't that the jockey? You can see me on a horse. You think I could make 106 pounds and ride? But I'll tell you something else. Shoemaker is never going to play in center in the NBA, is he? And so it goes with a Mary Lou Retton is not going to be a person who's going to be not only a football player. She'll never play, for example, women's basketball, will she? All right, so the issue isn't just sex. The issue is what you inherit as a physical body and how you take that information and develop it out to its fullest. And then comes the issue of what? Then comes the issue of you got good coaching. And then comes that remarkable aspect of sport that you talked about. That's that willingness to train, dedication, and above all, that very important essential property, the will to win. If you don't want to win, you'll never be a champion. All right. Did I say diet? Did you hear diet?
No. Diet.
What's the diet? What is this business about nutrition and sport?
If you eat too much, you're going to be overweight, and you're not going to be able to be a gymnast if you're overweight.
That's right. The thing I want to point out to you here is that most people think of diet to a human being as somehow fuel to a racing car, don't they? So I'm going to scarf up, I'm going to stuff the fuel in my body, and I'm going to have all that great energy. Now, is diet and eating in a human being the same as putting gasoline in a racing car?
Or if you put in the wrong gasoline, the car's not going to run right.
That's a piece of it. What else is not quite the same in the...
leaves the body.
That's right. But
it can't be sucked up inside the engine to make it grow.
But what else? What is the machine of the human body in comparison with the machine of the automobile? Huh? The what?
The change in nutrition.
Yeah, in part, you see, what happens if I'm going to make an automobile, what do? I get some metal and I bang it and I build it, then it's all done, isn't it? And it's put together and the bolts are all tight, aren't they? And it's not changing all the time. But every one of us, our body is changing every moment that we sit together, isn't it? We are building the body, we are building the machine out of what we eat as well as fueling the machine, aren't we? You see that difference? That's a very important difference. Most people don't understand that. Most people say, all it takes is if I eat the right food, I'm going to get the right fuel, and I'm going to burn that high-test fuel, and I'm going to win. Nonsense. I think it's time we turn our attention to a fundamental question, and that is, what is the science of nutrition? The science of nutrition consists of an absolute, unambiguous chemical knowledge of exactly what a human body needs to live on. And you say, well, how could you ever determine that? And the answer comes in a very strange way. There are some people who lose their gastrointestinal tract. They have cancer, or they're born without a gastrointestinal tract, or they have some terrible disease debilitate their ability to digest food. And the only way they can stay alive is if we put into their body a solution which contains everything that the body needs to survive. That is to say, not a morsel of food, not a drop of water passes these people's lips, and every bit of energy, every bit of nutrient that their body needs comes dripping out of a bag, either into a needle that's in their arm or into a catheter that's inserted near their heart, okay? These are people that are called total parenteral nutrition fed. Now, the real science of nutrition then is to know, what do you put in the bag, right? What's in the bag? First and foremost, water. Every human being needs water. If you don't have water, you can't get rid of your waste products, you can't control your body temperature, you can't run your body circulation, you can't maintain the sodium-potassium balance across your cells. So you have to have water. We need sodium, we need potassium, we need chloride, we need calcium for our bones, right? We need calcium to maintain the integrity of our cell membranes. We have to have sulfate, we have to have phosphate. So there are certain salts that have to be in that bag. So yeah, yes?
Some people, salt, you know, hurts their blood pressure, you know. I don't know why it hurts their blood pressure, but I have a lot of aunts and relatives that, you know, have high blood pressure because, you know, of salt. They don't eat pork.
You're absolutely right. The issue is too much salt is no good if your kidneys are not good. If your kidneys are good, there is never a problem with hypertension and salt because our body is very beautifully regulated to maintain everything in equilibrium, okay? Now, if because of a genetic cause or because you have obesity or some other problem, your kidneys don't handle the salt right, then excess salt kills, all right? But nonetheless, in that bag, water, salts, what else? You have to have energy, don't you? Calories. How do you get calories in a bag? The answer is you put in fat. You put in fat, not junk. You see, I don't believe in junk. Everything that you put in your mouth, whether it's a Twinkie or whether it's an orange, is food, isn't it? It's a chemical. It's a mixture of chemicals. But what we need in the bag is enough energy to run our bodies with. And it turns out that the best, densest form of energy that our bodies can get in this solution is in the form of fats. Now, again, it's like the salt. You say, hey, if I eat too much fat, I'm going to be fat, aren't I? Yes, you are. But if you only have to put it into an arm, you want to put it in a small volume. So you want the highest density energy. So where do you get energy in your body? You get it from fats, you get it from sugars, and you get energy in proteins. We burn protein. Most people say, oh, no, proteins mend muscle. No! We burn protein as well as make muscle out of it, and that's important. But in the bag are calories in the form of fats and calories in the form of sugars, okay? What else is in the bag? In the bag are 10 essential amino acids. You know, there are 20 plus amino acids that we make into our protein, but we make over 10 or 12 of those in adequate amounts, but the ones that we don't make, you got to put in the bag or you don't grow and you don't live, right? Water, salts, calories, carbohydrates and fats, essential amino acids. What else is in the bag? Finally, we come to vitamins, right? Got to have vitamins. These are the substances our body cannot make, and we need them in very small amounts. The water-soluble vitamins, the B vitamins, vitamin C, folic acid, B12, so on, and the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, vitamin A for vision and proper membrane function. That has to be in the bag. And last but not least, what you have in the bag is you have about 12 trace elements. Iron, copper, zinc, manganese. Again, less than 1/100% of our body weight is composed of these elements. If I take any one of them away, you're dead. You don't grow, you don't function. Huh? So here are people living with that. But you say, hey, I don't have a needle up my arm. I don't have a catheter in my vena cava. I'm eating food. What's the relationship between what's in the bag and what's on my dinner plate, huh? Let's talk about that. What do you eat? What is a typical dinner for you?
Spaghetti, some kind of meat, vegetables.
Spaghetti, meat, vegetables?
I don't know. No, not
What do you drink?
Kool-Aid.
Oh, Kool-Aid. All right. What else is that?
I don't know. Just like I usually have meats, vegetables, and something to drink.
Fine. All right. What about you? What do you eat? Anything and everything. Beautiful. Waste queen. Right. Go. What do you eat for breakfast?
Cheerios Wheaties.
Cheerios, Wheaties, breakfast of champions, right. What? Milk? Orange juice, wonderful. Fruits, vegetables, meats, fish, chicken, huh? Wonderful. All right. You know what we've just heard? We've heard kind of a cross-section of America, haven't we? We're talking about meat and potatoes, and we're talking about breakfast foods, and we're talking about juices, we're talking Kool-Aids. Nobody said Coke or Pepsi, but I know you all swill that stuff, huh? I mean, come on. And yeah, but listen to me. What's in a Coke that's good? What's in a Pepsi that's good?
The carbohydrates?
Water. Water is good. Water is essential, isn't it? We've got to have that water. And whether you get it from a Coca-Cola or whether you get it from a milk isn't a function of the water content, it's a function of what else is there, right? Well, what else was in the bag? We've talked about Cheerios. We've talked about potatoes. What are those? Carbohydrates, sugars, aren't they? And whether you get the sugar as sucrose, which you'll get if you eat a piece of fruit or if you drink the old-fashioned Coca-Cola, which had sucrose instead of fructose syrups, or whether you have a pasta, you like a spaghetti, that's a terrific, huh? What are we talking? You look Italian. Anyhow. Well, I'm teasing you, but I'm not teasing you. So much of what we eat is what? Carbohydrates. In fact, if I were to look at your diets, if I took everything that you ate and I put it in a chemical analysis, I would bet you that about 50–55% of your diet is made up of carbohydrates of various kinds, which you use principally as an energy source. Now, other things which nobody said to me butter, huh? Nobody said to me Twinkies. Nobody said to me ice cream, huh? Nobody talked to me about French fries, huh?
Potatoes.
Well, yeah, but you know, they're potatoes and potatoes. For example, grease is the issue, isn't it? It's fat, isn't it? So here's a kid who wants to wrestle, and he wants to wrestle. What do you weigh at your top wrestling?
When I'm wrestling?
Yeah.
About 135, 132.
I guess they're right, 135, all right? And you're about 145, 150, right? So now if he's going to eat potatoes to get energy, he doesn't want to gain weight, does he? So what does he do? He's got to eat a boiled potato or a baked potato, because if he puts that same potato into boiling fat and eats it, he doubles the amount of calories in that potato, all right? So suddenly we're beginning to worry about what? We're beginning to worry about what do we do with the calories that we ingest if we don't burn them? And the answer is we sit on them, right? And the tooth fairy never comes and takes them away. So when you're trying to make weight and you want to stay thin, you stay away from fats, and in normal diets, because there are a lot of fats in our diet. We eat it in cookies, and we eat it in ice cream, and we eat it in lots of foods that we like because it tastes so good, or even in the meats we talk about, very high in fat, all right? About 30 to 35% of our total calories are taken in fat. Well, where does the rest come from? Meat, huh? Protein, right? Now, protein contains roughly 15% of our caloric intake in our body. But that brings up this other problem about the protein and the essential amino acids, right? Because we are using that protein to do what? To build the machinery of our muscles. And every one of you who sits around here today who is a fine athlete depends on your musculature to be a winner. And so you've got to build that machinery out of protein. So in part, if we eat a balance of protein from animal sources, red meats in particular, and from milk and dairy foods, as well as from vegetables, the beans, the legumes, and so on, which are rich in protein. In that 15%, we get more than enough protein to build all of the muscle our body needs. And now what's left? Well, we've got salts, right? Where are the salts? Well, in part, you sprinkle them on the body. You ask me, how about the salt and hypertension? Yeah, if you have poor kidneys and you got a problem with excreting salt, then you've got to stay on a very low salt diet. But we grow up tasting salt. I like salty foods. I like salty peanuts. Given a salty peanut versus an unsalty peanut, what are you going to eat? You can eat the salty peanuts. The Frito-Lays or whatever they are, the potato chips. We're rich in salt. But if you got to watch it, you got to get that salt down. Now, meanwhile, you got to have potassium. Where are you going to get that? bananas, from fruits, from vegetables, which are rich in potassium and low in sodium. Now, we talked a little bit about vegetables. What else are vegetables bringing us? What else are the meats bringing us? Well, they're bringing us those very vitamins and the very minerals and the very trace elements that we need. So if we don't have that well-balanced group of dairy foods to give us the calcium, because that's the best source of calcium we know, cheese, milk, ice cream, anything of a dairy origin, great. Well, what are the special problems then that the athlete faces with respect to eating? And the two biggest problems are essentially one problem. It's either going up in weight to become heavier, to play a certain position, to be a bigger guy in the center spot someplace, or to be tougher and bigger when you're playing a cornerback or a quarterback or whatever it is, where you want to add weight to your body. And the other criterion is to be lighter, as a wrestler faces, as a gymnast faces, as a distance runner faces, who wants to stay light. So the problem of making weight turns out to be a single problem. That is the balance between how many calories you take in and how many calories you burn. And good weight management says, don't do it over short periods of time. If you want to come down slowly. Come down over a period of not much more than 1 pound or 2 pounds a week at the most. But what about the kid who wants to bulk up, huh? What do? My answer to them is, don't go to these fancy diets about high protein, high this, high that. Just eat everything and anything that you like. Everything and anything. Be, in a sense, a glutton. But at the same time you're a glutton, do what? Work out, exercise, build muscle. Now, that's making weight. All right, we've been talking about making weight, and that is a very important part of this business of sport, to play at the right weight. Sometimes playing at the right weight causes real serious problems, and it's an issue that is called anorexia. That is starvation to the point when your body doesn't work right. Now, we think commonly of anorexia as a problem of young adolescent girls, and in point of fact, it isn't. It's a problem of many, many women who compete in long-distance events, triathlon. It's a problem in men. Salazar had anorexia. The great long-distance runner had anorexia. And what does that mean? It means that you have so little body fat that your hormones don't work properly. Women, for example, stop having their normal monthly periods of menstruation. Their hormones don't work properly. Men start to get fragile bones called osteoporosis, which is a disease of older-aged women. And all of these issues are from being too light. So that brings us to a serious issue here about the whole notion of what do we eat that makes our body work better. And the classical concept that we have heard about coming again and again with the top athletes is carbohydrate loading, that the bulk of our diet as athletes should be in the form of carbohydrate. Now, there's truth to that. The bulk of our diet is, but it's only for the super-trained athlete. The athlete who is really in the top 0.1% of world-class competition, that athlete can profit by training to load the muscles with carbohydrate. Now, let me just tell you what that is. If you're doing a sprint event or a short-term event or basketball or football where you run and you stop and you breathe, you don't worry about carbohydrate loading. It has no meaning. But if you're an athlete who has to go literally long distances for long periods of time, who am I talking about? Marathon runners, triathlon people, cross-country skiers. Then what you want to do is to not use the carbohydrates in your body as fuel. You want to use your fats as fuel, because they're wonderful fuel stuff that we have in our muscles too. And there, what you need to do is to try to get as much carbohydrate in the form of glycogen in your muscles. So you run literally to exhaustion 4 days before your event. You exhaust your body, depleted of all of its glycogen. Then you go home and you eat tons and tons and tons, figuratively, of spaghetti or cookies or cakes, high carbohydrate foods. Your muscle cells compensate for the low glycogen by building more than it normally would. Next day, same thing. Go out, run to exhaustion. Go home, eat again. Boom, your body takes in the carbohydrates, loads it in the muscle. But then you've got to rest. 2 days of rest before the event. It's important that you take lots of liquids before your event. Not so that you load your belly and you feel full and you're jostling, but you had to have a lot of liquids to get you through the event, or liquids during the event as you're running. You've seen that in marathons and triathlons. Very important. When you're playing football, when there's a timeout in basketball, drink. Not so that you drink to the point of being waterlogged, but you drink to have water. But stay away from sweetened drinks, and let me tell you why. It's a very interesting phenomenon. If you take in sugary foods, in beverages or in solids, like a cookie, or a candy bar, before the event, within 2 hours of an event, you do something that's not good for yourself. And what is that? You get sugar in your blood, then what happens? You secrete insulin. You remember, insulin is the hormone from the pancreas that controls your blood sugar. That's good news. Bad news. Insulin stops your body from mobilizing fat, and you can no longer properly burn fat during your event, okay? My advice, based on scientific nutrition, is to stay away from sweetened drinks 2 hours before the event, and stay away from them during the event. You're better off to take water. The reason most people go to a sugar juice, or sugar or a juice or something, is because you can drink more and it tastes better. Okay? So you see what we're talking about. The issue then is not to try to load up on sugars. Carbohydrate loading is good for some athletes, but don't do it to the point of detriment.
I had a question. You were talking about bananas and potassium before. I had a question. Is cramps a lack of potassium?
In some people, you can get cramps from lack of potassium. Most muscle cramping that has been studied in a quantitative way is a lack of calcium. And I want to emphasize that calcium again and again to all of you. Don't let coaches tell you that milk causes mucus, that milk is bad, that milk causes lactic acid and cramping. Milk will keep you away from cramping because it's the richest source of calcium we know.
Now, where does the water come in? They say that cramps is a form of not enough water.
That's because they're quite right. If you lose a lot of water, then what happens? The concentrations of salt in your body increase in the tissue itself, and then you get what is known as electrolyte imbalance, and the neuromuscular junctions don't work properly, and you cramp and you tetany. So you see, all of this comes together. All of this means to be sensible in your eating habits, but don't look for magic. The question is how to be a winner. And I think we've agreed that you've got to be endowed with the right genes. If you want to be a center, you want to be 7'2". If you want to be a middle linebacker, you want to be about 6'3". If you want to be a gymnast, you'd like to be about 5'2" or 3". If you want to be a middle distance runner, you'd like to be about 5'6" and thin. And so it goes. With every sport, there is a certain quality of a body that comes to us in our genes. And then what else did we say? You got to have the knowledge about that sport. You have to have the best coaching, the best training, the best strategy, the best tactics, and what? And practice, practice, practice. Okay? And along with it, practice is something else, isn't there? What's that something else? You got to have a mental attitude. You've got to have a will to win. You've got to be willing to bear that pain. I mean, I don't like to be a masochist, but there is something to the statement, no pain, no gain. So the issue is genes, the issue is coaching and training, the issue is a mental attitude, a self-discipline, an excitement, and what else? There is that essence of magic that I know exists in every one of you who are champions. It's that essence of magic that says, I believe in myself, and I believe what I'm doing for my body, and it takes advantage of every little possibility, the taking of the wheat germ every day, or that magic Arnie Schwarzenegger protein powder, or some pill that you like, or rubbing a special amulet, or what? Herbalife, whatever it is that you want. If you believe that that's going to give you the winning edge, you got to take it. But deep down inside, it's that belief in yourself and in your body and an understanding of the science of nutrition and the eating of good food that helps make that breakfast of champions. Are you rolling?
Okay, shall I ask him your question?
No. I'll go off the top. I'm Paul Saltman. I'm a professor of biology here at the University of California, San Diego. This is my 32nd year on the campus of UCSD. It's been a great and wonderful experience. I can't wait to get up in the morning and go to school every day. I hope you'll feel the same way. If you want to be a wonderful, learned, thoughtful person, then you've got to have a good college education. A good college education means you're in an environment where you have teachers, laboratories, computers, art galleries, places where you can work and be a creative human being and interact with a remarkable faculty of thoughtful and knowledgeable people who care about your learning. But it all begins with you. Don't come here unless you want to learn. This is the finest environment for teaching and learning that you could possibly imagine.
Makes me want to cry.
I'm going to be here. I'll enroll.
That's great.
I love it.
Beautiful.
One take, we're done.
You out of
Can
here?
I do one more
Absolutely
just for backup? It's
Okay.
always good to have a backup.
Okay, that's lovely.
I know.
Thank you. I'm Paul Saltman. I'm a professor of biology here at UCSD. I've been here for 32nd. Take again. I'm Paul Saltman, professor of biology, University of California, San Diego. This is my 32nd year here at UCSD. It's been a wonderful experience. It's been 32 years of teaching and learning. It's been an environment where I could be a creative scientist, have the joy and pleasure of teaching some of the finest students in America, and all of the time being in an environment that's active and dynamic and stimulating. Is that where you want to be? Do you want to be at a university in which teaching and learning are the key elements, where we will take you out to the limits of your human potential if only you will take that personal responsibility to get there? Let me help you reach out to your full human potential. My colleagues and I at the university would love to have you be a part of us.
I'm crying. That is great. That was beautiful.
Okay.
That was beautiful.
Are you happy with
I'm
Well, I think
very
of
happy.
new things. Who knows what we'll come up with.
That's exactly, that's
You
beautiful.
make our job so easy.
Well, if you